than 6 months there. But really, the news out of this rally, we heard very early on as the president there talked to his supporters about the nomination of Judge Brett Kavanaugh, his Supreme Court nominee. At one point, the crowd broke out into a chant of "We want Kavanaugh, we want Kavanaugh." And then President Trump went on to mock the testimony of the woman who testified just last week before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Dr. Blasey Ford, and alleged that it was an attempted sexual assault by Brett Kavanaugh that caused her to come forward and share this story. But the president, who just days ago called Dr. Blasey Ford's credible and compelling, tonight appeared to mock that same testimony. Let's turn to CBS News White House correspondent Weijia Jiang, who is there in Southaven, Mississippi, and joins us now from that rally. Weijia, let's just start with that nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. Let's play that portion of the rally where the president appeared to mock that testimony of Dr. Blasey Ford.
What he's going through, 36 years ago, this happened. I had one beer, right? I had one beer. Well, do you think it was? Nope, it was one beer. Oh, good. How did you get home? I don't remember. How'd you get there? I don't remember. Where is the place? I don't remember. How many years ago was it? I don't know. I don't know. What neighborhood was it in? I don't know. Where's the house? I don't know. Upstairs, downstairs, where was it? I don't know. But I had one beer. That's the only thing I remember. And a man's life is in tatters. A man's life is shattered. His wife is shattered. His daughters, who are beautiful, incredible young kids. They destroy people. They want to destroy people. These are really evil people.
Weijia, give us some context here. We had not heard those kinds of comments from President Trump. In fact, as I was saying just before we came to you, it was just a few days ago that the president said this of her testimony, quote, "I thought her testimony was very compelling, and she looks like a very fine woman to me. A very different tone tonight."
Yeah, Elaine, he went there. He went to the place where I think a lot of White House aides and Republicans were holding their breath, hoping that he would not do, because they are in such a vulnerable position right now, waiting for the findings of the official FBI investigation that the president ordered. But tonight, it was a totally different change in his tone, in his defiance, and he made pretty clear what he believes. And you have to forgive me because this crowd was electric tonight. It was such a massive rally, especially coming off of the one last night in Johnson City, Tennessee. And I think that energy really propelled him to make these statements, because as we've seen time and time again, President Trump really feeds off whatever mood the crowd is in. And this was a very raucous crowd, very obviously more than others here to chant with the president, to hang on his every word. And I think because he really felt that energy, he went with it. You know, this was a long rally, and you could tell in the way that he was speaking, in the way that he was energizing the people here, that he really took on a different persona in dealing with the Kavanaugh controversy. Even yesterday, even though he mentioned Kavanaugh, tonight felt very different because, again, he seemed to be attacking Dr. Ford. And as you so importantly mentioned, Elaine, it seems like the farther away we get from that testimony day, the more time that passes, he begins to question her more and more, because initially, when he first made public remarks about it, he talked about how credible and moving her story was. And then he called for the investigation, and he talked about the importance of getting answers. But here we are tonight with a very different President Trump, who openly, publicly mocked her, even as his FBI continues to investigate.
That's right. And Weijia, I wonder, I know it's very difficult to hear, but, you know, the president earlier on Tuesday said this, quote, "It's a very scary time for men in America regarding being accused of sexual assault." Do you have any sense of the political kind of discussions or calculations that the White House and his aides are making regarding this issue? Because as we saw there, the president clearly continues to enjoy the support from his base. It shows no signs of diminishing.
You know, that's such an important point, because I do think that his aides and those very close to him perhaps warned him to be very cautious treading into this territory when he's talking about the Kavanaugh nomination. And in fact, I've talked to sources who say the problem is Trump is Trump, and he is going to be himself, and regardless of what kind of advice that he gets, in terms of the tone that he takes, in terms of the language he uses, he's going to say what he wants to. And this was actually the third time, perhaps fourth time, that I've heard in public that he is very strong about what you just said, that he has a warning for young men in this country that the country is somehow out to get them, warning that their jobs could be at stake, warning mothers and wives and sisters that their loved ones could find themselves in a place of being falsely accused. What he doesn't address is valid allegations, Elaine. He doesn't talk about, all those credible accusations that lead to criminal charges. And he didn't talk about the women who come forward, who make those allegations and what they might be going through. Instead, he focuses, and he did today, by the way, leaving the White House, heading down here to Mississippi. He talked about, perhaps he was in Philadelphia coming here. But the point is, he talked about and doubled down on his warning to men that it's really their burden to carry, because they could face these false allegations. It could really put them in a tough situation. And so that is what we heard again, as you pointed out here. Several times now he has mentioned that, they are the ones who are victims here.
Weijia, it's been a very busy news day. It continues to be. Let me also ask you about this New York Times investigative piece that was released Tuesday that alleges the president engaged in tax fraud. Can you just remind us of sort of the basic outlines of what was in that report, and how is it that the White House is responding to the claims?
Yeah, just minutes before this rally started, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders sent a very defiant statement saying that the story was completely false, and that, these were not new pieces of information, that in fact the IRS had this information in the past, and they were signed off on it, and there was no criminal finding here. So basically, here's what we have. We have a President Trump who, even before he took office, really sold himself and continues to sell himself as a self-made billionaire, as someone who only took $1 million from his father, and then he was able to grow that by so much. So the article, and this is based on, according to the New York Times, extensive interviews and over 100,000 pages of other financial documents. The article claims that, in fact, it was a loan of about $61 million that he has yet to pay back in full, and that over the course of several years, President Trump and his siblings worked out several schemes to rake in money from their parents, to hide different pockets of money as gifts, and to work out a strategy to undervalue their real estate holdings on tax returns so they would have to pay less in taxes. And so the New York Times really spells out how this all unfolded. Now, I should say that an attorney for the president also released a statement saying that these allegations are 100% false. The interesting part of that statement was that he actually called out the president's other family members and said, they may have been involved in this, but the president himself was not. But we should also mention that the New York State Department of Taxation responded today saying they are investigating these new allegations that have just come to light as a result of this investigation by the New York Times. So the president did not directly address this, but he certainly continued to slam the media's fake news, putting out fake information about him. And by the way, it really does call into question this ongoing refusal for the president to release his tax returns. He could put all of this to bed. by releasing his tax returns. But he cites an ongoing audit as the reason why he refuses to do that, which breaks from decades of precedents set by his predecessors, as we've seen so many former presidents do, just putting out their tax returns out there so it's not a big question looming, which it continues to be over President Trump.
Yeah, we'll see if the president decides to respond further in addition to what we saw there from Sarah Sanders. All right, Weijia Jiang there in Mississippi for us. Weijia, thanks so much.